In a cold basement office, flickering lights mimic the heartbeat of a failing empire. CEO Isabel Crowe watches in deep frustration as the complex system bleeds red error codes. 5 senior engineers argue frantically. Their elite expertise proved useless against a critical billion-dollar deadline. Amidst the dark shadows, a quiet maintenance man wipes grease from his calloused hands, staring at the circuit board in absolute silence. Without a word, he steps forward and tightens one tiny, overlooked screw. Instantly, the massive system reboots into a steady green, leaving the room in a deathly hush as the shocking truth is finally exposed. The man's name is Aaron Blake. He is 42 years old with silver strands just beginning to ghost through his dark hair. To the world, he is just the guy who fixes the leaky faucets, changes the light bulbs, and ensures the toilets flush. To his 8-year-old son, Ethan, he is a superhero. But right now, Aaron is just a shadow in a room full of bright minds. He stands in the corner of the high-tech basement office of Crowe Global Group, wearing a faded navy jumpsuit with maintenance embroidered in simple white thread. His hands are calloused, his eyes tired, reflecting a man who has lived several lifetimes in one. Aaron checks his heavy-duty watch. 3 p.m. Ethan finishes school in 30 minutes. Every second he spends in this basement is a second closer to being late for the only thing that truly matters. He needs to finish his shift, pick up his boy, and start their evening routine. Macaroni and cheese, math homework, and a few chapters of a sci-fi novel before bed. The basement is a labyrinth of humming servers and cold steel, a place where air is filtered and light is artificial. Aaron has spent the last 3 hours here, originally called in to fix a stuck door handle, but he ended up staying to observe the unfolding disaster. He watches the experts with a quiet, detached interest. He sees their frantic energy, their reliance on screens, and their growing panic. It reminds him of a life he once led, a life of critical paths and disruptive innovation that now feels as distant as a dream. Aaron is a contract maintenance worker, a position most people in this building consider entry-level or unskilled. His daily tasks are mundane, repetitive, and largely ignored. He fixes heavy oak doors that won't close properly. He replaces burnout LED tubes. He ensures the HVAC system hums with a quiet, unobtrusive efficiency. In the high-stakes, high-velocity world of corporate technology, no one asks the handyman for his opinion on data throughput or server architecture. He is an invisible gear in a massive machine. But Aaron wasn't always invisible. 10 years ago, the name Aaron Blake was whispered with reverence in Silicon Valley. He was the elite. He was a senior systems architect, a visionary whose code and hardware designs ran the very foundations of the global financial industry. He was the man you called when the impossible happened. He lived in a penthouse, drove a car that cost more than most houses, and had a calendar booked 3 years in advance. Then the world shattered. A family tragedy, a car accident on a rainy Tuesday, took his wife, Sarah. In the aftermath, Aaron looked at his newborn son and his 100-hour work weeks. He saw the high-pressure meetings, the private jets, and the empty luxury of his life. And he realized none of it could fix the hole in his heart or raise his son. To be the father Ethan deserved, Aaron walked away. He deleted his professional profiles, moved to a different city, and took a job that allowed him to clock out at 3:30 p.m. every single day. He traded his tailored Italian suits for a wrench and a jumpsuit so he could be home for every single dinner, every single bath time, and every single nightmare. His former colleagues thought he had a nervous breakdown. Aaron knew he had finally found his sanity. Today, however, the atmosphere at Crowe Global is anything but quiet. It is toxic. The air is thick with the smell of ozone and expensive coffee. Isabel Crowe, the CEO, stands in the center of the room. She is 39, dressed in a sharp power suit, her eyes like polished obsidian. Isabel is a titan of industry who doesn't believe in luck, intuition, or excuses. She believes in credentials, Ivy League degrees, and documented performance. The central mainframe, the technological backbone of a massive multi-billion-dollar merger, has crashed. This isn't just a glitch. It's a total system failure. The monitors are plastered with a cascading waterfall of red error codes. Isabel is on the phone with her board members, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "I don't care about the warranty," she hisses into the receiver. "I care about the fact that we are hemorrhaging $40 million every hour this system is dark." The room is packed with the company's senior engineering team. They are sweating through their silk shirts. They are shouting over one another, pointing at diagnostic tablets that offer no answers. They are running proprietary software that returns nothing but critical error, source unknown. Isabel's patience is a dying candle. She knows that if this system isn't live by the midnight deadline, the merger will dissolve, her board of directors will revolt, and 5 years of her life's work will vanish. She glances toward the wall, her eyes landing on Aaron. He is standing near his toolbox, holding a ladder he had intended to use to fix a ventilation fan. "You!" she snaps, her voice cutting through the engineer's chatter like a knife. "Maintenance, man. Don't just stand there like a statue. Stay out of the way. In fact, move your equipment to the hall. This is a level 10 crisis, and the last thing I need is someone tripping over a ladder. This is way above your pay grade, Aaron." Aaron doesn't flinch. He doesn't feel the sting of her dismissal. He's heard it 1,000 times before. He looks at her, really looks at her, and sees the fear behind the authority. He nods politely, his voice a calm contrast to the chaos. "Understood, Miss Crow. I'll clear out." But as he begins to fold his ladder, Aaron's eyes linger on the open server rack. He doesn't see a mess of wires. He sees a familiar architecture, a ghost of his own design from a decade ago. He watches the way the status lights pulse. He hears the subtle, irregular whine of the secondary power supply. He sees the flaw. It's not a ghost in the code. It's a ghost in the machine. It's physical. The tension in the basement has reached a boiling point. Another 60 minutes have bled away. The senior lead engineer, Marcus, a man whose ego is as large as his salary, is slammed his fist onto the primary console. "It's impossible," Marcus roars. "The software is flawless. I wrote the redundancy protocols myself. We've run the diagnostic scripts 12 times. There is no logical digital reason for this system to be unresponsive. It must be an external cyber attack. We need to shut down the external gateway immediately." Isabel looks at the digital clock on the wall. The red numbers are a countdown to her professional execution. 2 hours and 45 minutes left. "I don't care about your ego, Marcus, and I don't care about impossible theories," she says, her voice dropping to a whisper that is more terrifying than a scream. "I care about results. Is there something simpler we are missing? A power surge? A physical breach in the hardware?" Marcus scoffs, wiping sweat from his brow. "Ms. Crow, please. We are talking about a multi-layered, synchronized neural network housed in military-grade casing. This isn't a broken toaster or a jammed printer. The physical components were installed by our premier hardware partners, experts in the field. They are perfect. I have their certification right here on my tablet." As they argue, Aaron moves slowly toward the cooling intake. He knows that in 5 minutes the system will attempt another hard reboot. If that happens while the physical bridge is misaligned, the arc of electricity could fry the entire motherboard. He feels a sense of responsibility, not to the company or the money, but to the machine he once helped dream into existence. The engineers begin a desperate, frantic cycle. They replace secondary circuit boards that aren't broken. They swap out expensive fiber optic modules. They scramble to find a glitch in the digital ether, their fingers flying over keyboards. But the error lights remain a stubborn, mocking red. The system remains a multi-million-dollar brick. Suddenly, the intercom crackles. It's Thomas, the head of the hardware partner firm and Isabel's brother-in-law. His voice is smooth, condescending. "Isabel, I'm hearing there's a delay. My team assures me our hardware is pristine. Perhaps your internal IT team has corrupted the kernel? We can send a specialist tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning is too late, Thomas," Isabel yells. She slams the intercom off. Aaron takes a slow step forward. He knows he should leave. He knows Ethan is likely standing by the school gate right now, looking for their old silver SUV. But he also knows that if this system stays down, the vibration he hears, the one no one else seems to notice, will eventually cause a thermal runaway that could start a fire. He clears his throat. The sound is modest, but in the sudden, defeated silence of the room, it carries. "Excuse me," Aaron says. The engineers stop. Marcus turns around, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated frustration. He looks at Aaron's grease-stained jumpsuit, the wrench hanging from his belt, and the smudge of dirt on his cheek. He laughs, a sharp, ugly sound. "A closer look? What, you think you're going to find a loose wire with your flashlight, janitor? Go back to fixing the toilets, Aaron. This is high-frequency computing, not a leaky pipe. You don't even know what a packet is." The other engineers join in, a chorus of mocking snickers. They are failing and they need someone to look down on, to feel powerful again. One engineer mocks him. "Maybe he thinks the internet is stuck in the pipes, Marcus." Aaron doesn't blink. He doesn't feel the need to defend his pride. He keeps his gaze fixed directly on Isabel Crow. In that moment, something in his posture changes. The maintenance man disappears, replaced by a man who possesses absolute terrifying clarity. He looks like a king who has chosen to walk among the commoners. "I noticed a slight misalignment," Aaron says, his voice steady and resonant, filling the room. "On the primary bridge connector, the one linking the CPU array to the memory housing, it's off by perhaps 2 millimeters. It's causing a micro vibration during the high-speed boot sequence. That vibration is triggering the hardware failsafe before the OS can even load. That's why your software diagnostics are coming up clean. The software hasn't even had a chance to fail yet. You're trying to debug a program that hasn't even started." Marcus rolls his eyes so hard it looks painful. That connector was installed by a specialized robotics firm using laser-guided precision. It is physically impossible for it to be misaligned. "Miss Crow, he's wasting our time." Isabel looks at Aaron. She is a woman who has built an empire on reading people. She sees the senior engineers, men with PhDs who are shaking with stress, their eyes darting around the room looking for someone to blame. Then she looks at Aaron. He isn't shaking. He isn't guessing. He is stating a fact of physics. She sees a flicker of something in his eyes, a ghost of a genius she didn't know existed. "How long to fix it?" Isabel asks. 30 seconds, Aaron replies. "Ms. Crow, you cannot be serious," Marcus protests, stepping between them. "He'll void the warranty. He'll destroy the sensitive pins. He doesn't even have an anti-static wristband. This is madness." Isabel raises her hand, a gesture that carries the weight of a queen. Marcus falls silent. She walks up to Aaron. She is shorter than him, but her presence is immense. "You have 30 seconds, she says. "If you break it, I will not only fire you, I will sue you for every cent you will ever earn. If you fix it, well, let's just see what happens then." Aaron nods. He doesn't look intimidated. He doesn't look excited. He simply sets his toolbox down on the pristine floor. He doesn't reach for a diagnostic tablet. He doesn't reach for a high-end multimeter. He simply reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, precision manual screwdriver, the kind used for delicate watch repair. If you believe that sometimes the simplest things are the most overlooked, sign up now so you don't miss the moment of unraveling the truth. The room is so quiet you can hear the hum of the cooling fans and the distant drip of a pipe Aaron was supposed to fix earlier. Aaron moves with a surgical grace that contradicts his rugged appearance. He doesn't rush. He doesn't fumble. He removes the outer protective casing of the primary server rack with practiced ease, his fingers moving as if he's done this a million times before. He doesn't look at the monitors displaying the red errors. He leans in close, his ear inches away from the humming core of the machine. He is feeling for the frequency. To the engineers, this is a box of data and abstract logic. To Aaron, this is a living, breathing entity of copper, gold, and silicon. He remembers designing the very first prototype of this bridge. He knows its weaknesses. He finds the bridge connector. To the naked eye, to the laser-guided robots, it looked perfect. But Aaron sees the slight, almost imperceptible tilt of the mounting bracket. It wasn't a failure of technology. It was a failure of human care. A lazy installation hidden behind a polished steel facade. He realizes Thomas's team didn't use the laser robots for the final assembly. They did it by hand to save time on the final day. "There," Aaron whispers. With a single steady motion of his hand, he adjusts the bracket. He doesn't use force. He uses precision. He tightens the mounting screw just enough to stop the vibration, but not so much that it stresses the board. He feels the click through the handle of the screwdriver, a tactile confirmation that only a master would recognize. It's a feeling of alignment, of harmony restored. Now, Aaron says softly. He flips the manual override switch on the power distribution unit. For 3 seconds, the room holds its collective breath. The system hums, a low-frequency growl that slowly climbs into a healthy, rhythmic purr. The angry red lights on the console flicker. They go yellow, and then they vanish. One by one, the massive wall monitors flash to life. The critical error messages dissolve, replaced by a cascade of green check marks. A steady, pulsing blue light fills the room, casting a calm glow on the shocked faces of the engineers. System online, the cool, synthesized computer voice announces. All sectors operational. Data synchronization at 100%. Buffer cleared. Isabel Crow stands frozen. Her mouth is slightly open. She looks at the screen, seeing her merger saved. She looks at the janitor who is currently wiping a smudge of grease off the server casing with a rag. She feels a sudden, overwhelming sense of relief followed by a sharp, cold realization. Marcus, the lead engineer, rushes to the console, his hands trembling as he types. He is looking for a way to explain this. He is looking for a way to claim it was his preparation that allowed the fix to work. But as he reads the internal hardware log, his face turns the color of ash. What does it say, Marcus? Isabel demands, her voice cold. Marcus swallows, his voice cracking. The logs, they confirm it. A physical interrupt on the bridge connector. The connection was faulty from the moment of installation. It wasn't a software bug, it was a mechanical failure caused by improper mounting. The sensors recorded a vibration exactly where he said it would be. Isabel's eyes narrow into dangerous slits. She remembers Thomas's voice on the intercom, assuring her the hardware was pristine. That system was installed by our primary partner, wasn't it? The hardware firm led by my brother-in-law, Thomas? Marcus nods slowly, unable to look her in the eye. The records show Thomas personally signed off on the verified status last week. But this was a sloppy job. It was hidden behind the casing where no software diagnostic could see it. No one would have found it unless they were looking for a physical flaw. He skipped the final stress test to meet the deadline. The silence in the room becomes heavy, suffocating. It is the silence of a lie being dragged into the light. The top-tier partners had cut corners. They had lied about the quality of their work, nearly costing Crow Global billions of dollars and thousands of jobs to save a few thousand in labor costs. And they had covered their tracks with complex jargon and digital smokescreens that fooled every high-paid expert in the room, except the man who cleaned their floors. Isabel looks at her team of senior engineers. They are looking at their shoes, their expensive degrees suddenly feeling like scrap paper. Marcus tries to speak. Isabel, I was just about to check the hardware. Shut up, Marcus, she says, without looking at him. Then she looks at Aaron. He is already closing his toolbox. He isn't gloating. He isn't standing tall with his chest out, waiting for a round of applause or a promotion. He is just a man who finished his task and is now looking at his watch with genuine, deep-seated anxiety. Wait, Isabel says, her voice echoing in the basement. How did you know? How could you possibly see what 5 senior engineers in a robotic diagnostic suite missed? Aaron looks up, his expression neutral. He gives a small, tired smile. People focus on the light on the screen because it's bright and distracting, he says. They forget about the wire that makes it glow. You can have the best software in the world, Ms. Crow, but if the foundation is crooked, the house will eventually fall. I just looked at the foundation. It's what I do. He picks up his toolbox. If that's all, I really have to go. My son has been waiting at the school gate for 15 minutes, and he gets scared when I'm late. Isabel doesn't let him leave. She moves with a speed that surprises everyone, blocking the exit. Where did you learn to do that, Aaron? That wasn't the work of a maintenance man. That was the work of a master architect. Aaron hesitates. He didn't want this. He liked being invisible. He liked the quiet life where no one expected him to save the world. I've worked around machines a long time, he says, trying to push past. Isabel isn't satisfied. She turns to her executive assistant, who is standing by with a tablet. Access the deep HR archives. I want the full, unredacted file for Aaron Blake. Now. The assistant taps furiously. Seconds later, a file appears. Isabel grabs the tablet and begins to scroll. Her eyes widen with every line she reads. She sees the patents, 12 of them. She sees the industry awards. She sees the name of the lead architect for the original Aegis system, the very architecture that the entire Crow Global Network is built upon. You're the Aaron Blake, she whispers, her voice filled with a rare sense of awe. The Blake who designed the core kernel? You vanished 6 years ago. There were rumors. People thought you retired to a private island or were working for a foreign government. You were the most sought-after mind in the industry. The engineers in the room gasp. Marcus looks like he wants to dissolve into the floor. He had just spent the last 5 hours insulting the man who literally invented the technology he was currently failing to manage. I didn't go to an island, Aaron says quietly, his voice tinged with a hint of sadness. I went home. My wife passed away, Miss Crow. My son needed a father more than the world needed another server rack. I realized that being the smartest man in the room didn't mean anything if I wasn't in the room where my son was growing up. Isabel looks at the man in the grease-stained jumpsuit. She realizes she has spent years and millions of dollars searching for the best talent in the world, only to realize that the greatest genius she had ever hired was currently cleaning her floors because he valued something she had forgotten: integrity, family, and the truth. I've been a fool, Isabel says, loud enough for the entire room to hear. She immediately calls her legal team on speakerphone. Suspend all contracts with Thomas's firm. Start a full forensic audit. They tried to sabotage this merger with incompetence and lies. I want them barred from the industry. Then she turns back to Aaron. Aaron, I am not going to ask you to go back to being a maintenance man. I need a chief technology officer who actually knows how to pick up a screwdriver. I'll triple your previous peak salary. I'll give you enough stock options to retire tomorrow. Just stay, lead this team, teach them how to look at the foundation again. Aaron looks at the offer. It is a king's ransom. It is the life he walked away from. He looks at Isabel, and then he looks at his watch. What about the hour? Aaron asks. I pick my son up at 3:30. We do math homework at 5 o'clock. I don't work weekends, and I don't answer the phone after 8 o'clock p.m. That is my non-negotiable condition. Isabel smiles. It's the first real human smile anyone has seen from her in years. Aaron, for someone who saved this company tonight, you can pick him up at noon if you want. We will build the schedule around you. Just don't leave us with Marcus alone. Isabel kept every word of her promise. Aaron's new contract was a legend in the corporate world. He didn't have a gold-plated nameplate on his door. In fact, he refused the corner office. He chose a workstation near the server room, and he still kept his old battered toolbox under his desk. The Crow Global system never crashed again, not because it was perfect, but because there was someone there who knew how to listen to the machine before it started screaming. Isabel changed too. She stopped looking at Ivy League degrees as the sole measure of a person. She started looking at character, at the handymen, and the ghosts in her company. She realized that the people who do the small jobs often have the biggest insights. A week later, Aaron is at the school gates. He is exactly on time. Ethan runs out of the building, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders, and throws his arms around his dad's waist. How was work, Dad? Ethan asks as they walk toward their SUV. It was good, buddy, Aaron replies, tossing the backpack into the trunk. I heard some kids saying you're a big boss now, Ethan says, looking up with wide, curious eyes. Did you fix something huge? Like a spaceship? Aaron laughs and ruffles his son's hair. I just fixed something people weren't paying attention to, Ethan. Most people look at the big shiny picture. But the truth is always in the tiny details that everyone else is too busy to notice. Ethan smiles, satisfied with the answer. Like a secret code? Exactly, Aaron says, pulling out of the parking lot. Like a secret code. As they drive away, Aaron looks in the rearview mirror. He sees the high-rise office of Crow Global reflecting the setting sun. He knows he has power now. He knows he has wealth. But as he listens to his son tell him a long, rambling story about a bug he found in the playground, Aaron knows he already has the most important thing in the world. Truth doesn't need to be loud to be seen. It just needs someone calm enough to look closely. If you believe that true value doesn't lie in the title you hold, sign up to follow our next stories and leave a comment. Have you ever been undervalued simply because of your position? Let's share your story.